If you are craving more softness, magnetism, and ease in your life, but your body still feels like it is stuck in control, tension, or emotional burnout, you need to be inside Muse. It is a new masterclass that we are doing that I am so excited for. And this is not just another mindset training. Muse is a full body activation that shows you how to unlock your feminine energy, heal trauma at the root, and shift your nervous system into full receivership. So inside this masterclass, I'm going to be breaking down why trauma is the number one thing blocking your magnetism and how to finally clear it, the 4 flavors of the feminine and how to embody your unique essence, how to rewire your nervous system so that receiving love, money, and success feels safe, the polarity shifts that make your man step up, lead, and cherish you, how feminine surrender makes you more powerful, not less powerful, and why your manifestations aren't landing. And a little hint, it is not about your vision board, it is in your body. So Muse is where you are going to be able to stop chasing, forcing, and proving, and really start becoming the woman that attracts everything with ease. It is free. It is going to be potent as fuck, and it is happening live. So make sure that you are registered. You can save your seat by registering with the link below. And trust me when I say this is the shift your feminine energy has been waiting for. So I will see you there. Today, everyone, I am diving into a big, spicy topic, and that is really how feminism has shaped dating as we know it today and whether it's actually made things harder. I want to preface, this is not a man-bashing episode. Why would it be? It's me. It's also not an anti-feminist rant. Instead, my intention for this episode is a truth-telling space for women who are wondering, why do things feel so hard? It is hopefully going to give you permission to realize that you can do things differently in your life if things are not feeling supportive as they are right now. And for those of you that have read my book, thank you. If you haven't read the book, and if you have read, haven't left a review on Amazon, please leave a review on Amazon. Like, pause this episode and go do it, because it really, really, really helps with the ranking of the book. But if you haven't read the book yet, you definitely are going to want to, because it is also going to give you that further permission to just be the woman that you desire to be. You know, I talk so much about trauma, as obviously, as you guys know. And when we talk about trauma, we're talking a lot about like childhood wounding and sisterhood wounding and all that kind of stuff, and how that's related to us and like how it's shaped us as women, and how it has influenced how we feel about being in our feminine. And there's another really important component that you look at when you are working on becoming your best self. And that is, what has society conditioned me to feel like I have to do in order to fit in, you know, like be successful, be enough, and kind of not stick out like a sore thumb, because biologically we actually don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. We are actually wired for connection and community. So one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because it allows people to realize that trauma healing is not just about what happened in my childhood. It's also, what is the conditioning that is being fed to me in society? And a lot of the conditioning that's being fed to us in society these days makes us feel like, as women, we have to be operating in our masculine in order to be successful, in order to be enough, in order to be worthy. So I want to break that down today, but in the lens, like, and kind of help you guys through this, but in the lens of romance and love. So whether you're dating or whether you're in a relationship, really have an open mind. And I hope that the episode helps you to be able to like take some of these internal thoughts that you have and actually realize, wow, these are not mine. These have just been given to me by the conditioning and the box that kind of society has put me in. So this episode is not about just like hating on feminism, because feminism would not have allowed me to sit in this position right now and run a company and become a mom and like do all the things that I do, right? It's not about that. It's instead, and that's the whole thing of the book anyway, it's instead about asking, are we actually happy with what is created in our love lives? And are we actually happy with being with the woman that we are showing up as in our given season of life? Because ladies, we do not need to shrink ourselves for a man, but you also don't need to be the man in the relationship either. So let's just remember, feminism has given us a lot. The right to vote, it's given us education, work rights, work rights, choices, all of that. But where I've seen us trip up is that we went from being told we belong in the kitchen to now being told we should be making six figures, leading companies, being on board, like the director of companies, being on the board, initiating dates whilst still looking hot, being a perfect mum, and never needing a man. And that is where we're starting to actually trip ourselves up, because as a result of us feeling like we have to be everything, we are then feeling like we are not being successful at anything. And what's important to note is that women are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, and burnout today than ever before. In fact, and this is in my book as well, women have the most rights they have ever had, yet we are the unhappiest that we have ever been in history. So it's like, okay, well, clearly us being able to just do everything isn't actually increasing our happiness. And from what I've seen from all the anecdotal evidence of working with people like you for the last 8 years and counting, is that where the unhappiness is coming from is the pressure. It's the burnout. It's this like, we've been taken out of that housewife box and put into the boss box of feeling like in order to be this like superwoman, we have to be ticking all of these boxes. Otherwise, we are showing up as less than. And on top of that, we have created a new like performance standard in dating. We are, and in our love lives, we are hyper independent. We are hyper productive. We are emotionally unavailable to ourselves. We've closed off our hearts. We walk around with this masculine armor around us all day. We are disconnected from our cycle. Our hormones are bloody everywhere. And it's like we have created this new norm for ourselves as women to be exhausted, to have that joke, which is not a joke, of all I want for Mother's Day is a nap. We have wired ourselves now to think that it's normal to not rely on a man to be everything, to be the provider, the protector, the nurturer, the connector, the lover, all of it, all at once. And it's not normal. I mean, even just factoring in, like, never in the history of womanhood, ladies, have we even ever raised our children alone. Never been the norm. We, back in the day, we had community around us. We would not even breastfeed out, like we would not be the only mother breastfeeding our children. We would have other women in our community and our circle, in our village, also helping us with that. I mean, you think about how back in the day, our period was seen as so sacred that there would be like the red tent days. And people often think the red tent is like, oh, it was shameful. But no, that's actually not what it was. Women actually were able to take that time off when they were bleeding. And the other women that were not bleeding would then be looking after their children, for example, during that time so they could rest. Now it's like, oh, you have your period, so what? Keep pushing through. And there is a balance, right? Because I think you know this about me as well, is that I'm not saying like, oh, we are just like, oh, we can't do anything because we have our period. We're not useless, right? But it's instead, it's not even allowing us the choice of, do we want to like keep going on our period this cycle, or do we want to rest? It's like the norm to push through. It's the norm to not ask for help now. It's the norm to raise your child alone. And it's no longer the norm for a lot of cultures, and well, for a lot of Western cultures like the US, Australia, it's the norm to not have so much help. Even we were discussing this in the business group that I was in, of even just the fact that like for so many women now raising children, back in the day, the grandmother would come in and help, but now grandma's still working. She's still going. And I'm not then saying don't work at the age of 60 or 70, because I probably will, don't we? Instead, what I'm saying is like, we are being left as women with so little support, so little connection, so little like intimacy in our lives. And we're wondering why we are unhappy, depleted, infertile. And I'm like, the answer is right in front of us. So let's start with how all of this and all of this societal conditioning, this modern societal conditioning, is hurting our relationships. Number one, the classic line, be independent, don't need a man. What does that lead to? That leads to these energetic walls and hypermasculinity. I know so many of you struggle with this, of that wall around your heart, of like the Miss Independent. Part of it is, yes, how you were brought up when you were little, but part of it is also what is the conditioning around you saying. Another one, like, you don't need a man, don't rely on a man. The don't rely on a man, and God, do you see it sometimes in Instagram comments? That don't rely on a man creates fear of receiving, fear of surrender, fear of softness. So no wonder we are struggling to not just receive in our love lives, but receive the pay increase. We're afraid of trusting our bodies. We're afraid of letting go because of these conditionings of like, we cannot rely on other people. Feminism taught women how to be strong, which is a beautiful thing, right? And how to get what, women want. But now the women, like you listening to this today, you don't need to keep being strong anymore because our grandmothers and our mothers did that for us. Now, can we bring the pendulum back into the middle? Now, can you receive support without guilt or fear? Because when we continue to just live in this like, I don't need a man, I'm independent, don't rely on anybody, the result of that is what many of you are struggling with: leading the relationship, initiating everything, making all the plans, and then resenting your man for not leading. And then on the flip side of this, what we're also seeing for men is that they have no purpose. And we know from research that when a man does not have a strong enough purpose, that increases his chance of committing suicide. I write about that in the book as well. So, many of you know my story. I used to be such a cold, hard bitch. Truly, I thought I was being a good feminist by not needing a man, not relying on anybody, pushing through, not showing any emotions, having this wall around my heart. I thought that was what a good feminist does. I thought that was being a cool girl. I wanted to be a girl boss. But I wasn't deeply happy in my heart. Once I started trusting men again, once I softened, once I came back into my feminine, my whole dynamic with men changed, and the feelings that I had within myself about being a woman changed. And when we sink into our biology as women, we understand our nervous systems are more sensitive than men's. I'm not just saying that. It's like a full scientific thing. Our nervous systems cannot deal with the same amount of stress that men can. Our nervous systems do not want to lead a relationship. We want to feel led. It relaxes our nervous system, especially when we are living in this modern world where we are doing so much, where we are leading so much, where we're working, where we are achieving, where we're out there in the world. We want to come home and just be like, oh, and just relax our bodies and relax our nervous system and not lead the relationship. We all know that when we come home and feel like we have to stay in that leader mode, it's exhausting. It's resentment building. It's anger inducing. And what ends up happening for a lot of women that are heavily in their masculine, whether it's because of the conditioning that they've been around from society, often it's from a place of trauma, as you guys know, where you don't feel safe to actually be in your feminine. And so what happens is that you don't end up with a masculine man because the two of you just butt heads, right? A really masculine man wants a really feminine woman. Okay. And if you're in the middle of kind of the scale of masculine and feminine, you're not going to get a very masculine man. If you're really masculine as a woman, you're going to get a more passive feminine man, or just frankly, no man. What I've seen happens for a lot of clients is that when they get into a relationship, at the beginning, he's passive, she's in the masculine because that's the dynamic that works because she's not in her feminine. But then 5 years on, when she's sitting in front of me, she's like, I am miserable. He doesn't do anything. Why is he so passive? And, lists off all these issues. And you can change the dynamic 100%. Obviously not possible for every couple because it takes two to tango, but you can change that dynamic, but it requires you also releasing control. That's why the trauma conversation and the trauma healing is so, so, so imperative if you want to really, truly, sustainably be embodied in your feminine. Because without that trauma healing, you actually can't be truly in your feminine and truly feel safe, letting go of control, being in receivership, opening up your heart, all that kind of stuff. And this is why I'm saying all of this, is because, as feminism is today and, all the female empowerment, it doesn't teach us how to embody our feminine. It teaches us to protect ourselves from disappointment. It teaches us that stupid trend of like, I'd rather be like locked up with a bear than a man. Like people have told me about this on like TikTok or something, of like women say that this is why I'd rather choose the bear. Like as in, it's this thing of like choosing to be stuck in the woods or something with a bear rather than a man. I mean, that conditioning, we all probably know the repercussions of young women feeling like a grizzly bear is safer than a man. Feminism does not teach us this conversation, these conversations that are happening right now in society. It isn't teaching us to feel safe as a woman. It isn't teaching us how to embody our feminine and to have like deep, deep, deep levels of happiness and to live in alignment with ourselves. It is teaching us to create a masculine armor around ourselves to protect ourselves from disappointment. And what I want to share with you is that you can be a boss in business and soft in love. You can, be the breadwinner and experience amazing polarity. You can be sitting on a board if you want to, but you can also be experiencing a man that is deeply in his masculine. But you can't if you're gripping onto control everywhere. You can't if you're like your kind of homeostasis, the energy that you come back to after a day, if that energy is masculine, like as in you do not feel safe, your body does not feel safe to fully relax into your feminine isn't your coming home energy, it's not that place of homeostasis, then you will not be able to leave business at the boardroom, in the boardroom, whatever, and then be soft when you come home to your man. And I say this because, like, I'm somebody that is assertive and I am strong and I am fiery and I will absolutely lead a room. Some of the women talk about this in the immersion testimonial video of like, I'm able to lead a whole entire room and have authority and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm embodying, and they see it. And for those of you that haven't yet experienced in person, the testimonials, when I was editing them this year, I was like, wow, this has made it very, very clear that you actually cannot replicate this in-person energy to online. Because the thing about when you come to the immersion, for example, or even if you join her year as well, and you can get on the wait list for the next opening of that. But if you join her year, for example, next year, and we have the in-person events, it's like you can see me in those moments in between. And I think that's what actually helps people to see the embodiment. Whereas like I physically can't show you the in-between moments on like an Instagram story because it's curated, right? Like to an extent it's curated, or on a Zoom call, like I'm on the Zoom call with you. I'm not going to like the Zoom call isn't like following me around the house. So you don't see the in-between moments. But those in-between moments and the interactions that I have and how I'm able to shift into authority and then shift back to softness. A lot of women found that so expansive to see in real time. Oh, I can do both. I actually don't just have to be one or the other. Think about it like this. Feminism gave us options, but we have forgotten to give ourselves permission. Stop just thinking that whatever your friends are doing or what you're seeing on social media or whatever is the only way to do something, or is normal, or is what you should do. Like, what do you want for yourself in your life? Because what feminism actually did is it gave us choice. And we are forgetting that. We are allowing ourselves to be conditioned to just put in a new box. And my concern with this is actually that because women are getting so burnt out and so fed up with the kind of like, I'm just gonna say girl boss box we've been put in, and like the woman can do everything box, I don't want it to make the pendulum swing all the way to the other side, where women then feel like, okay, the only way to be happy is to not work, it's to not make the money, it's to like be baking and having chickens in the backyard. Because a lot of the time when not obviously with every woman, but so many women make these jokes of like, I just want to like have chickens and bake cookies all day. And it's coming from a place of exhaustion. And so what I don't want to have happen is that exhaustion then make us go so far backwards that all we do for like the rest of time is just we swing from one side of the pendulum to the other side of the pendulum. Another part of this conversation that's really important to recognize is how it has affected men. I've talked about this before, and it's deeply, deeply talked about in my book. For so many men, they have been trained to back off, to stop leading, to play it safe. I mean, I talk about a situation in Australia in the book where boys at school, young boys, were made to line up and apologize for their gender to the girls. I mean, what the fuck? Not only number one, is that so traumatizing for the boys. And like, can you imagine how that's going to play out in the future? But also, number two, what is it doing for the girls? It is making the girls think that being a boy, being a man, means something is wrong. Like you have something to apologize for. They were not apologizing for like, the actions of other men, which I still actually don't agree with. They were apologizing for being boys. They were apologizing for their gender. The emasculation in our society in examples like that, but then also examples behind closed doors with what we're doing with our own men at home, with our sons, it is rampant. Women micro correcting, micromanaging, controlling, managing, chopping balls off, humiliating, making men feel like they are bad just for being men. An example is I was asked a question the other day of like, basically, the question was something about like, stop, like, I don't want to get angry so much at men anymore because like they're not living up to what I want and I feel like they don't understand me and blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's the problem. A lot of the time women are getting angry because they're expecting the men in their life to treat them as their girlfriends treat them. Men don't understand you. They don't. You will not always feel the way that you want to feel around, like with a guy. And you could have the exact same situation with a girlfriend and she's going to like, you don't even need to ask for what you need and she'll just give you what you need. But the more that we lie to ourselves and think that men are just women that are taller and hairier, which they're not, the more that we feel let down by them and then angry and resentful. But when you actually realize, oh wow, he's not a woman, he's a man, he is so different, and I actually can't get all my needs met by him, and I actually can't always, he can't always understand me, for example, when you actually not just acknowledge that, but accept that, it's actually really freeing because you stop then trying to have him achieve some arbitrary goal that he will never achieve that makes you then more resentful day after day. We all want our men to be taking charge. We want the guy that is, interested in us, that we're dating, we want him to court us. But my question for you is, do you give him the space to actually lead? Or do you make him feel uncomfortable for fully being a man? And it's a hard one, right? Because so many men, it's not even like you're making them uncomfortable to be a man. It's society is making them uncomfortable to be a man. So in those situations, you actually need to give them even more permission that it's safe for them to lead, direct, make decisions, have the control and lead you. You really have to make that clear. And then when he is actually leading you and he is actually courting you, making decisions, etc., don't emasculate him. Don't tell him how he could have done a better job. Receive it. I have a whole episode on receiving if you need it. So feminism created all of this beautiful independence that we now have. But what we need is to stop waving this flag of like, I'm an independent woman, as though it's a flex. Like, you are an independent woman. And when we feel the need to, shout anything like that from the rooftops, do you know what the place it actually comes from? It comes from a place of insecurity. So when We feel the need to be like, I'm independent, I'm independent, I'm independent. You know what that tells me? You do not believe that you're independent. If you truly feel independent, if you truly feel like, you know what, I have my own back, I support myself, I have a backbone, I can speak my truth, that energy then allows you to feel safe having energetic intimacy, polarity, being receptive, because you actually know that you have your independence. So notice what you feel the need to prove, because that is actually coming from a place of insecurity. As always, ladies, how can you let your man initiate more? How can you let him plan? How can you let him lead without, and here's the thing, without your fear coming up of it means that you're less than, because him leading something does not mean that you're less than. It means that you don't want to lead it. That's all it means. You're the one that is making up this story that by him leading or being in his masculine, you're weak. That's not actually true. You just don't want to do it. You could initiate the date. I know you could. You could plan the date if you wanted to. I know you could. You could lead. I know you could. You could control. But you don't want to. That's why you're listening to this episode. You don't want to do that. What makes you think that not leading is less than? Receiving compliments, receiving help, receiving pleasure. What makes you feel guilty for that? When we have these desires inside of us, these deep desires that we aren't allowing ourselves to express, and I say this as somebody that for years deeply, deeply wanted to let myself feel just like claimed by a man. And I've shared this story with you guys before on the podcast a while ago, but the boyfriend that I had that essentially got my period back, he was so in his masculine, and well, actually not fully in his healthy masculine, because then once I had my ski accident, then he broke up with me because I wasn't giving him enough attention. But so we'll just park that part there. But at the time, I was like, this is more masculine than what I'd been used to with guys, okay? And he wasn't allowing me to be in my masculine. It was fucking sexy. I loved it. I loved that when I would try to control, when I would try to lead, or when I would try to micromanage him, or when I would emasculate him, he would not tolerate it. It was extremely triggering for me. And I couldn't receive all of his masculinity, but I deeply, deeply wanted to. And the reason why I couldn't receive all of his masculinity was because I had my own trauma around men that I hadn't healed. But I also had this trauma around this idea around this conditioning that receiving from a man and letting go to a man and letting a man just like take me and cherish me was something to be ashamed of. So I wouldn't allow myself to receive pleasure. I wouldn't allow him to lead and for me to just sit back and soak it up without feeling guilty. I felt guilty. I felt wrong. I felt so naughty, and not in like a sexy way naughty. I felt like naughty, right? Now I feel sexy. I feel naughty in the sexy way, right? But back then it made me feel like if I wasn't leading, I was less than. So what is that desire that you are deeply craving underneath what is happening in, or what you are allowing in your romantic life? And can this episode, and also hopefully my book, start to be a permission slip that you are so allowed to want a masculine man, to receive, to surrender, to be courted without any guilt. So I just want to remind you guys of this. Feminism gave us so much independence. It gave us so much choice. We are all so grateful for it. However, we now need to give ourselves permission to come back into living with alignment with ourselves, because we are no longer needing to fight for our rights, because we have them all. We have equal pay. We have the ability to vote. We have, in the US and Australia, we have, and also like the UK and most European countries, we have the same rights as men. We need to give ourselves permission to now feel like I can live as a woman again. If this conversation has just like hit you in the gut, I want you to go and watch my free masterclass on how to have him lead you. It is your first step to repolarizing your dating life. I also have an amazing masterclass that's paid, Embodiment of Dating, the Embodiment of Dating Masterclass, for those of you that are dating and you want to feel like a queen when you're dating. You want to feel confident. You don't want to be having meltdowns when he hasn't texted you. And most importantly, you want to actually feel, you actually want to attract in and only date men that are truly courting you, leading you, and making you feel like a woman.